The Night Before the Night Before, A Christmas Cautionary Tale by Aaron Vlek.
"Get away from that damned window, will you?"
Klaus roared from the dining room, where the great oak table set for three and a decanted bottle of his finest Christmas wine waited patiently for the festivities to begin.
"He'll be here when he gets here, and your ridiculous pacing won't bring him any faster. Now, come sample this unbelievable vintage, and then go sit and be quiet by the fire."
He poured a splash into one of 3 ruby goblets, swirled it twice, 3 times, then breathed in the fragrant mist and sighed.
"What are you on about in there?"
came the sharp retort from the living room, where a huge tree dripping with shining baubles and tiny lights held court across from the massive stone fireplace.
"I said, stop pacing, get away from the window, and come have a glass of wine and wait, as patiently as you possibly can, for him to get here. What's wrong with you tonight, anyway?"
Klaus was dressed for the occasion as tradition demanded, red suit velvet trimmed at the hem and cuffs with white fur and shiny black belt. Boots to match the belt were drying next to the door, as the man himself padded across the polished wooden floor in his red and white striped stocking feet. Herr Drosselmeyer appeared in the doorway of the dining room, glaring angrily at the gold watch dangling from a fob that spilled from his crimson and gold brocade waistcoat that fit snugly over his dark gray moleskin breeches. His top hat, greatcoat, and bespoke jacket were flung across the sofa, and a carved walking cane kept counsel with Klaus's boots next to the door. Sweeping an errant lock of long white hair back to the ribbon clasped at the nape of his neck, Herr Drosselmeyer shook his head.
"Something's just not right. I can feel it. I can feel it, I tell you. Where is he? Blast his bristled hide. Tonight of all nights. I don't know why you carry on like this. You know he has never been predictable, and never punctual. Bah!"
came the curse with a wave of a slender but powerful craftsman's hand.
"What's wrong with you that you can't feel it? I can almost smell it in the air. Something is wrong, I tell you. Wait, what was that?"
Drosselmeyer hissed as he raced to the window.
"I heard something."
"The wind. You heard the wind. There's a blizzard out there of absolutely mythic proportions. I've never seen anything like it. Now, please, come away and show me what's in that sack of yours. I'm in on this thing too, you know."
"All right,"
the greatest toy maker in all the world said brightly as he knelt on the floor and fumbled with red silken cords that tied up his big black velvet bag. Pulling away the sack and tossing it aside, Drosselmeyer displayed a fabulous dollhouse at least 4 feet high, an exquisite and perfect replica of the Palace of Versailles down to the tiniest detail.
"Oh my!"
cried Santa Claus.
"Well, you've certainly outdone even yourself this time. Why, it could be the very thing itself shrunk down and brought to stand on my living room floor."
Drosselmeyer chuckled and nodded to himself as a solitary howl rattled the windows. Both men jumped up and went to the window.
"A wolf, nothing more, like I told you," Klaus said. "Look what you've done. You've got me leaping out of my socks, too. Now, tell me about this palace of yours. What does it do?"
"Well," the toy maker said, settling himself on the floor again and tossing his buckle shoes to the side, "this can be fine-tuned with the finishing touches when we decide who the winning girl or boy is. I needn't tell you that such fine-tunings will be according to whether this child has been a very good child, or the other variety. It can be a doll's happy home, a place of light and wonder, a palace from which to stage great campaigns and glorious expeditions. It can just as easily become a palace of tortured, bloody nightmares from which there shall be no escape. But we will decide, and there are none more fair than we 3 brothers at deciding such matters. If he would just get here. Not only do I fear something is horribly wrong, but I am famished. Have you nothing to pick on in there?"
"Were you always like this? I can't remember,"
Klaus murmured.
Sensible, you mean? Hungry and irritable when I haven't been given my supper in a timely and expected manner? Yes, I have always been like this. Now, give me something to eat and drink, and I promise I will still make a suitable glutton of myself when he gets here."
Klaus retired to the kitchen and prepared a cold plate of odds and ends and the dry heel of that morning's bread, and set it in front of Drosselmeyer, and watched as he sliced into the meat and bread with surgical precision with his knife and fork, and neatly tucked the morsels into his mouth.
"You mean you really can't feel the gloom and portent of this particular storm? The darkness closing in on us like a shroud, and the utter silence swallowing everything except for that damnable howling that you assure me is just the wind, or a mere wolf?"
Santa Claus roared with his characteristic belly laugh, and rubbed the tears from his eyes.
"And you, dear brother, spend altogether too much time in that big city of yours. You don't know what the night sky looks like, or what the world sounds like in the absence of trolleys and trams and the incessant roar of noise. We are thousands of miles from all that, and this is how things just are at my house. Besides, we always have blizzards this far north. You must calm yourself. I won't allow you to ruin the night with your fussing. Things will be bad enough when he gets here with his incessant bickering and complaining, and I'm warning you, don't you dare get into any of your silly fights with him. This is but one night a year. We are all the family we have left, and we each have a heavy burden to bear, a burden never more pressing than on this night. Now, enjoy it, do your job, eat. We'll have our toast, we award the winner, or loser as it may turn out to be, and then the two of you are off and leave me to my work." "I'm not a boy, Klaus, in need of one of your damn sermons," Drosselmeyer roared, as he slammed his fist on the table. "While you have only one lucky or unlucky soul to deal with," Klaus responded through clenched teeth, "I must see that all the millions of tiny runners-up receive their presents before sunrise. Now, if you're through with your picking, take that dish to the kitchen, wash it, put it away, then go pull 2 more bottles from the cellar and pour us another glass of wine, instead of staring out that damned window."
Drosselmeyer reluctantly did as he was told by his elder brother, and then the two settled into the 2 velvet great chairs by the fire, savoring their 3rd glass of wine and waiting for their brother to arrive for the night's festivities.
"So, what do you think?"
Drosselmeyer asked in a low conspiratorial voice, his eyes shadowed behind tiny wire-frame spectacles.
What do I think about what?"
Klaus murmured, stirring himself from his reverie and a half-doze on the wings of a particularly good bottle of Christmas wine.
"Naughty or nice? Who do you think it will be tonight? Who do you think will win?" "You know we can't talk about that before he gets here," Klaus warned.
Drosselmeyer jumped up from his seat and dashed to the window again and ripped back the curtain to peer out into the dark.
"What now?" groaned Klaus. "In the name of all the festives!" "There's something out there, I tell you," the toy-maker hissed. "A something, a nothingness."
His voice trailed off into a whisper.
"Of course, it's the dead of night. We're in the middle of a blizzard, and you are behaving like an idiot." "No, I can feel it crawling across my skin. Klaus, I'm telling you, something's wrong out there. Come look." "Oh, very well," Klaus moaned,
joining his brother at the window. The heavy white eyebrows bowed in the middle as the 2 brothers stared at each other.
"I'm going out there,"
Drosselmeyer growled.
"No, don't be an old fool. I don't know what it is, but the storm is. You're right. I don't think it's safe out there. Oh, and drat his hide. Where is he?"
Klaus was cut off before he could finish his query by a howl that shook the windows and caused the snow to fall from the heavily laden branches. Then there was a thunderous banging on the door. The brothers looked at each other as the scratching of heavy claws scrapped at the door. They dragged open the door against a heavy drift of new snow and watched as a massive figure some 7 feet tall shambled into the room. He tossed his sack beside the fireplace and shook off the snow and threw his rough-hewn fur cloak to the floor. The towering figure regarded the two, his curving ram's horns thrust 2 feet or more above his head, and a snarling grimace that might have been a grin, beaming over the room. "I've a ravenous hunger upon me just now, and I could eat everything in sight," the creature roared. "You took your sweet time in getting here," Klaus muttered. "Get your boots off and put them by the fire to dry, and then come to the table." "Very, very funny, brother," the lumbering man-beast said as he dried his hooves by the fire and shook the last snow from his own pelt.
"Enough of all this! Our toast!"
Drosselmeyer said, raising his glass and waiting for the brothers Klaus and Krampus to raise their own.
"It comes but once a year, but our work here is forever," he said,
and the others echoed his words. Then they each downed the fiery contents in a gulp. The 3 brothers feasted on Klaus's fine comestibles in the pride and joy of his cellar, laughing and reminiscing about Christmas Eves long past in their boyhoods in stranger climes than these. When they were full of feast and fowl and content on Christmas wine, they settled by the fire for the night's work at hand. Krampus retrieved his sack, and the 3 of them sat before the hearth.
"You must have noticed that this is a night like no other before it,"
he growled, the elongated teeth showing beneath a chilling grin on the bearded face.
"I knew it,"
Drosselmeyer said, slapping his knee.
"But this old fool refused to listen. What is it? What's going on?"
"You go first, Brother Klaus," Krampus said, his dark eyes twinkling and taking an undisguised delight in seeing his brother squirm. "No, you go first, Krampus. What have you brought? What's the worst evildoer you could find this year?" Klaus muttered, and Drosselmeyer shot him an inquiring glance.
"What is it?"
he said, looking at one and then the other.
"What's going on? Klaus? Krampus?"
But the 2 just sat before the fire, their eyes locked in what silent conversation Drosselmeyer could not guess. "Show me what you brought, toy maker. Let's see what our special child can look forward to," Krampus said.
"Of course,"
he said, pulling the Versailles dollhouse out from behind the tree where he had hidden it. "Oh, brother mine, you have outdone yourself. It's a thing of spectral beauty and so very perfect for... Well, I shouldn't be presumptuous. I have my candidate, and I am as sure of my decision as any I have ever made. But Klaus, go on. Tell us about your worthy candidate. Who is your very best good little girl or boy? Who was most deserving this year above all the others?" The curling horns and pointed ears nodded in his brother's direction, but the grin was one of certainty and triumph. Klaus just sat there, staring at the cheery twinkling Christmas tree. He tossed back the last few drops of wine and regarded his brothers. "I'm afraid I have no one," he said, his voice barely a whisper.
"What?"
Drosselmeyer roared.
"That's not possible,"
he added, glaring at Klaus and waiting for the joke to fall away. Krampus chuckled and nodded to himself, as if enjoying the punchline of a private joke.
"Klaus, don't be clever. Come on now, this is not amusing,"
the toy maker said, grabbing his shoulder and giving it a good shake. "Agreed," Krampus said, dragging his sack closer to his knee and untying the knot that held it securely in place. "Yes, it's a very sad affair, I'm afraid," Klaus began, as though he were delivering a eulogy at the graveside of a very dear friend.
"Admit it, brother,"
Krampus said, jumping to his hooves and dragging his sack up and preparing to empty it onto the ground. "You have no good little girl or boy to show us for one very sad and simple reason," he roared.
"Because there were none,"
he added, slapping his thigh.
"What?"
Drosselmeyer hissed and looked back and forth between them.
"That's not possible. I mean,
I knew things were bad, but they've been bad before. Surely there must have been someone." "No, I'm afraid not. There was no one, not one," Klaus muttered. What was that, brother? I don't think I heard you, Krampus bellowed with laughter. I said, there is nobody this year. And oh, believe me, I looked far and wide and left no town or village or solitary forest home unturned. There was no one, Klaus said bitterly through clenched teeth. No, this can't be, the toy maker insisted. It's true, I assure you, as much as it pains me to say it. It's all too true. There was no one. Oh, sure, the children of the world will get their visit from me as usual, but there was no exemplary child, no bright light to show the way for others in the world. No one. But why are you so happy about it? He added, glaring at Krampus. Do you get some special perverse delight in all this? Glad? Special perverse delight in spending my days and nights with the worst people in the world, with the young monsters in training who wait only for maturity to bring their special horrors to the whole world? Special delight? Why, yes, there is special delight. There is special delight in trapping them in my bag each and every year, year after year after year, and dragging them, kicking and screaming to my den, he said, rising to his full height and causing the many bells that hung from his body to sound like the chimes of hell or a horse's festive harness, depending on how you heard such things. Yes, there is a special delight indeed, and now you must look at the very special worthy candidate that I have brought you, a candidate with no rival, a candidate so worthy, so exemplary of naughty and mean-spirited, that I bristle with pride at having dared to name such a one. I have outdone myself this year, brothers, so bring forth your palace of Versailles, you magician among toy makers, and tune its many wonders and mysteries to the worthy I now place before you, he said, opening his sack and drawing out a round ball which he held before them in his two hands. The ball, at closer glance, was as perfect a replica of the earth as was Drosselmeyer's palace, a replica of a home made for glories and horrors unparalleled in the history of mankind. Klaus and Drosselmeyer sat in silence as the globe of the earth shrunk to a size that could fit easily into the doll's house Versailles. See, brothers, all the world's girls and boys of all ages have become deserving of our efforts on this special night. And now, the reign of terror that humanity has wrought upon the world will reign as a deluge of plague and fire upon them all. And for a time, my brothers, our work is done. Until they learn, if they ever do. Outside, the black nothingness that Drosselmeyer feared drew nearer to the little house. The fire died upon the hearth, the lights grew dim, and naught but the nothingness prevailed outside their walls. Inside the doll's house of Versailles, the screams were drowned by the tinkling of so many bells. One wondered if it was just the wind, or the howling of a great hoofed beast on a snowy night.